We'll get underway. Excellent. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our council meeting of the 12th of October. If we could please all stand for our opening karakia. Te taua mai runga, te taua mai raro, te taua mai roto, te taua mai waho, kia tau ai te mauritu, te mauri ora, ki te katoa, haumie, huie, tai kie. Just to advise that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed to our council Facebook page. And first up, we have apologies from Councillor Bogue and Councillor Price. Thank you, Councillor Mawson, seconded by Councillor Taraha. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Do we have any conflicts of interest? There is no public forum. Are there any minor matters not on the agenda? No announcements by myself, but I would like to invite Councillor Mawson to give a announcement, please.
Cool. Thank you, Mayor Wise. Just want to say that we had a wonderful day on Tuesday, the International Day of Older Persons, which was held at the Maris Club Rooms, where Councillor Tariha and Councillor Crystal both took us on a mystery bus tour, which was fantastic. So thank you to them. Thank you to all the staff involved. It was a wonderful afternoon. We had afternoon tea and all sorts. Thank you, Mayor Wise, for speaking as well. And just huge thanks to local businesses who supported the event, providing presents and prizes, and everyone left feeling quite chuffed. So great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mawson, and thank you for your role in it as well. Any announcements by management? No. Okay, confirmation of the minutes from the ordinary meeting of council held on Thursday, the 14th of September. A mover and seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Gregg and Councillor McGrath. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. So we'll get stuck into our agenda items. And first up, we have a presentation and a verbal update from the Hawke's Bay Recovery Agency. And I invite Ross McLeod and Blair O'Keefe, who are here to present to us. Welcome, gentlemen.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you very much for having us here this morning. Ross is going to give you a brief presentation, and I believe we've circulated a paper in advance, which I hope you had a chance to have a look at. I really just wanted to start by firstly acknowledging the challenges that many of our community have been facing since Cyclone Gabrielle, and also to acknowledge the tremendous amount of hard work that's been going in by so many people and organisations across Hawke's Bay. It's great to see the resolve within the region, notwithstanding we've got some challenges to manage. In terms of the recovery agency, I guess one of the headlines from us is to say we've really only just got started. Our funding was confirmed towards the end of June, and we're in a position from the start of July to start fully resourcing our organisation. So the team's now starting to pull together. We've got a small team, and our role's very much focused on supporting at a strategic regional level and working with our Matariki partners where there's specific interventions and support required, particularly where there's interface required with the Crown. So a lot of our energy is focused around being that interface and integrator where the region needs to come together as one, connecting with the Crown and then working where we can across the region. As you'll be aware, Ross is going to give you a presentation, so I might just hand over to him now, and then we're happy to take as many questions that you've got. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Kia ora tātou, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to talk this morning. I just want to take you through a little bit of a snapshot of what's transpired so far, what's been worked on, the recovery progress, and then talk a little bit about the context and what the picture is going forward, the next sort of set of work, and the important aspects of that work going forward. And very happy to get your feedback and input to that as we go forward, because while we can't change the past, we can certainly shape what's happening coming forward. So the first thing I really want to do is just acknowledge the work and recovery that's happened so far from the partners across the region. And I think Napier has been central to that work. This is the way Hawke's Bay is configured. This is a recovery effort with a lot of contributors and a lot of moving parts. The councils are at the forefront of that, along with the mana whenua partners, government agencies, but we've also got businesses and NGOs getting on with their own recovery efforts in their own space and areas of activity. So really wanting to acknowledge the work that's been done by all of those partners, and particularly by Napier City Council. There has been a lot of work on restoring vital road connections, all the other services that needed to be put back in place to help people stand back up on their feet, and a huge amount of work by partners together and individually in leading that work. So I really wanted to start by acknowledging that work. Really want to acknowledge the efforts of the councils, particularly in working together on things like the fossil negotiations and the implementation of those things. So particularly the work of you, Mayor Kirsten, with the other mayors in making sure there was a strong collective approach to the region. The work of Louise, who was an integral part of the negotiating team for the region, but also the work of Richard, particularly and Anne and their team around the policy development, the fact that Napier and Hastings could work as it needed to be individually, but in lockstep, to come up with a approach that was agreed across those affected Category 3 areas. So really wanting to acknowledge you all for that work that is standing the region in very good stead. Just sort of looking at some of the things that we've been involved in so far in the progress to date, and there has been some really good progress made. It's easy to look out, as I do most days, and think, geez, there's a lot to do still, and there is, but some really good work that's been done so far. And again, that model that's been set up of a locally led recovery with agencies like the councils, government agencies on the ground, others leading the recovery efforts in place, regional coordination where things need to be joined up, where advocacy and advice to government is required, and that national support coming through. We've sort of been in that coordination place. Some of the things we've been involved in was developing that Regional Recovery Plan 1, and then working that through with the government, sort of their triage process. How could the aspirations and needs in that be supported? Obviously joining up, supporting the fossil negotiations and organising some of the advocacy around that and other things that are joining up. We have a PO structure that is working across the different spheres within the recovery, economic, primary sector infrastructure that's really trying to join up the agencies at that more detailed level as a key part of our work. Obviously the fossil program, one of the things we've been doing is assisting individual Matariki partners with particular projects, whether that be the funding for the Central Hawke's Bay drinking water protection flood works, whether it's the silt and debris program working with the regional council, or whether it's helping Mangahara Tangatu with their kaupapa Māori negotiations. We've found we're able to add value there for individual partners, and happy to work with any partner where we can support in that way. Obviously developing the infrastructure pipeline of work, and you may have seen the work that the Infrastructure Commission to Waihanga has released on workforce projections and demands. That at the moment is quite scary. I think there definitely needs to be some phasing and programming to smooth that program of work, but just signalling across all of the infrastructure owners and partners the work that needs to be done, and then we can plan that effectively together across the sectors. We sort of have got the job of being the link with government. The Cyclone Recovery Unit coordinates government response across government, and I guess we're the mirror of that within the region. Quite a lot of government relations work that's going on behind the scenes to support outcomes for the region. And then obviously, the phrase I've probably stolen from someone is we're all still building the plane while we're flying it. So trying to set up the organisation while dealing with those matters. Just probably want to talk a little bit about the context for the recovery and the Regional Recovery Agency. The agency was established by the Matariki Government's group back in about March with government support, with that job of coordinating regional recovery efforts between the locally led and the nationally supported. We are governed by both an oversight board, which was appointed by Matariki, of which Blair is the chair, and then also by the wider Matariki Governance Group, which is the Mayor's chair of the Regional Council and the chairs of the post-settlement governance entities in Hawke's Bay. And we are funded by the government, so the government decided it wished to support the regional recovery efforts. We're funded through to 30 June 2025 by funding appropriated by government through the Cyclone Recovery Unit and DPMC. So that's something that the region doesn't have to fund itself. Our role really, we don't have a statutory decision-making role. We're not a council or have those things, but we do have roles in that coordination across the partners, priority setting, advocacy and assurance role to government is something they want us to provide. I guess it's a quid pro quo for the funding, and certainly have required us to take a program management role in respect of the works envisaged in those fossil agreements. We do have the ability to support our partner organisations and help shape some of the way the recovery is rolling out. And as I've just said, we will have a programming and sequencing role, probably not just in that other work, but in looking at how that infrastructure program of work comes out, brokering sort of a program agreements with the various partners from the councils to Waka Kotahi and others involved in that infrastructure restoration. I guess we're probably in the phase at the moment where we still have some of the restoration phase that I call it standing people back up on their feet to roll out and to manage the implementation of. That's, you know, in the category 3 buyouts are a part of that, and there are other parts of it. But we're in that transition phase from the focus being on that initial restoration work to now turning our minds to how do we build resilience back into the region to future events. There is a lot of rebuilding work to do. Probably not a good phrase, but when I use you don't replace a 150-year-old rickety wooden bridge with a 150-year-old rickety wooden bridge. Mm. Yeah, we want things that are going to be more resilient to future events, but we also want to capture opportunities that exist as we channel the funding that's going to come in to restore those infrastructure assets particularly, but also looking at our social and economic systems and how they can be made more resilient or have opportunities in front of us there. So that's the sort of transition mindset we're going through at the moment. We haven't finished with restoration, but more and more needing to turn our minds to that resilience and opportunity capture work. Probably a big part of the context we're working in one of the reasons why the response is rolled out some of the ways it has so far is the government's fiscal position. I think when we started with Plan 1, it was built from the ground up. Lots of organisations undertook locality plans. There was lots of aspiration in those plans for improvement, as well as the absolute needs that were put in there as well. The government's fiscal position is stuff that there just hasn't been the ability to respond to all those aspirations. They are larger than the resourcing pool available. So that's and I'll talk about some of the really good progress that's been made in response to the first set of both local and regional recovery plans. There hasn't been the ability to respond to all of those regional aspirations. there. And I guess another part of the context is we're waiting to see what happens on Saturday night, obviously, without saying anything about that, that will shape the next layers of the recovery, sort of how government responds to that. So I think,
Sorry, Russ, we just have a question here from Councillor Brown.
Kia ora, Russell. Just struggling to land, can you give us an example of the sorts of things that you would be prioritising and sequencing that wouldn't fit into our BAU as councils anyway?
well, I think I think a lot of things will fit into BAU, but when we come to the program of infrastructure works that needs to be done across the region in terms of restoration, a lot of that will be in the transport space. Probably a lot of it will be outside Napier. Some of it will be affecting Napier, but a lot of it will be outside. Some of it will be state highway type priorities. At the moment, everybody envisages themselves doing the bulk of that work in a 2 to 3 year window, and there simply isn't the there won't be the workforce available. The workforce can be growing, probably won't be the material supplies available, and there probably won't be the funding available for everybody to do all of that work at once. So there needs to be some program and sequencing. This program's going to probably take place over a 7 to 10 year period, I'd say. And we need to broker some conversations around the parties, the funders and the parties doing the work about, what are the priorities, what needs to happen first, how do we spread that out over time. That's probably aided with those deliberate conversations rather than everybody turning up expecting to do that work in what they see as an optimal window. And I think that, to be fair to those organisations, all we've got at the moment is a first flush cut. So everybody's got what needs to be done, what they would do if they were the only ones doing it in an ideal world. And that always happens. You get the ideas out on the table and then you start to program them and sequence them. So that's an example of where I think what I was referring to in some of that work.
And just to clarify comments earlier, we're not decision-making entity. Our role will be to facilitate, where if there's 5 parties all kind of hitting the same window and we can see some clashes, it'll be just to try and ensure there's a robust discussion that gets the regional priorities kind of balanced without overriding, obviously, your decision-making authority for your portfolio.
So obviously, working through that restoration phase, we took the locality plans, and I think those went to government, and then we formulated those into a plan across regional recovery. We followed that up with, that was provided to the Minister, a first iteration of that, or first version, on the 30th of June, with an action plan following behind that. We were engaging with the Cyclone Recovery Unit as they triaged it and put it across the various government departments for response, and we've had some really good response come out of that. You'll have seen announcements around assistance from the primary sector through Kanoa, packages for productive industries to support them, recent announcements around tourism support and extensions of the Regional Business Partners program through the Chamber, and a number of other announcements like that. Obviously, the fossil negotiations were a key part of that response to the plan, the investment in flood protection projects with the Regional Council, the investment in transport projects, and the Category 3 buyout package that was announced. Waka Kotahi have been taking actions in their space in the State Highway. We've seen community and whānau sector support, including some money into psychosocial support. There's been various government agencies working through some of the Matariki partners, in some cases around temporary housing or TAS directly. So there's been a number of responses that are either have been taken or ongoing on the longer term housing stuff in response to the sort of first plan. But again, probably all of that aspiration hasn't been delivered on due to the sort of needs and aspirations being larger than the resourcing available. I guess the message we've had from government is that there's limited further government funding at the moment for the priorities in that first plan, and that if the region thinks some of those things that haven't been picked up so far are important, the region needs to find a way or individual partners to advance those themselves. And I think, as we move into the next phase, then we'll start to think, rather than having that bottom-up approach, how do we arrive at the next lot of priorities for the longer-term resilience and opportunity stuff. And I guess, this slide speaks to that. We're in that transition that I talked about. We're managing the tail of those restoration works. It's quite a big tail, so don't think that it's almost all over. And yourselves as a council are involved in managing a lot of this on the ground. We are, preparing a briefing to the incoming minister as part of the post-election process. We've been, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment, we've been getting some brainstorming going to input it into that, and the priorities we identify through that will lead into Plan 2.0. So this, in terms of the RRA work program going forward and the recovery more broadly, those are two chunks coming forward. I've talked about that program and programming and sequencing work, both on the specific fossil infrastructure program and the workforce planning. And really a lot of effort in the next phase going on identifying those regional priorities, the longer, medium to longer term ones, and advocating for them. Obviously, Lifeline's resilience is a key part of that, and probably when I look from a regional lens and look spatially, for Napier, Lifeline's resilience is probably the key priority that you will be telling us about. I don't need to tell you about your experience during the cyclone, but probably perhaps lesser actual physical damage than some other parts of the region, but roading access cut off for a number of days, telecommunications access and power cut off for longer periods. So those issues are in our sights as being absolutely vital for Napier and the region more broadly. But obviously keen to hear any sort of nuance or other additions to that from you. And the other part alongside that is what are the regional opportunities? We don't want to put back State Highway 2 North in the same precarious position that it's been in and was exposed by the cyclone. What are the opportunities and capturing, if we build resilience, can we capture opportunities? And the catch cry is, can we have a 45-minute commute from Napier to Wairoa, and what would that do for the Northern Hawke's Bay economy? So those are the sorts of things when we're channeling that investment that's going to come. Can we capture opportunities along the way as we do that?
Just to add to that, sorry.
Oh, no, if you do that, and then we've got a question from Councillor
I
Simpson.
was just going to say, the cyclone presents us with a real opportunity to take a longer term view and to, build a robust master plan and a multi-year funding strategy for the region. And I know all the councils through their long-term plannings take that approach, and I guess the RRA's board's view and management's view is we need to galvanise that as hard as possible, such that whoever's in government and whatever the circumstances are, we can just continue to say these are the priorities for the region. They're all agreed across the region, and then we can start mapping out the funding pathways to get there. And I think that's an essential product that we're particularly keen to ensure comes out of this process.
Thanks, Councillor Simpson.
Through you, Mayor. My question is on the recovery program or the long-term program. How far out are you looking? Obviously for us, with our long-term plan coming up, although we're doing a modified long-term plan, normally we're looking at a 50-year infrastructure vision. Are you going to match that? Because there are certainly a number of things around, particularly publicly owned or state-owned infrastructure that needs a serious look. The Waitangi, both of the Waitangi bridges, clearly a flood hazard or a mitigate or a significant risk to our industrial estate and our residential estate in Te Awa. So the question I'm asking you is, Are you looking at those sorts of improvements around your infrastructure and environmental resilience going forward? And will you be then also be advocating to the state-owned enterprises around those improvements?
Absolutely. That's the short answer. We need to take the long-term view of all the councils and look at assets and infrastructure as a long-term asset management and master planning exercise. And to my earlier comments, ensure there's a robust multi-year funding strategy that lines these up such that we can actually enhance the profile of the region and not just hand to mouth through funding profiles. So very much the strategic intent is to do that. We haven't yet at this stage articulated exactly what the timeframes are, but looking at it through a long-term asset management planning perspective, it's definitely multi-decade. And we really want to look for transformational opportunities alongside the hygiene factors of managing good infrastructure on a routine basis as well, and where the Crown funding fits in, and for each of you as councils to sort of work out what your funding profiles look like as well, and how we integrate that to come up with I guess an ambitious and believable plan for the region that makes us all believe that, you know, we're managing what we've got well and we're planning for the future well as well.
I think it's just essential that, and I admire the work that Kiwi Rail have done to reinstate the railway line as quickly as they have, because we know that feeds the port,
Sure.
keeps the port going. But
That's
we don't
Jim.
want them to consider the job done, because what we know is that infrastructure sits down inside the stop banks. And what we really need is all of that lifted up and out of the way.
Absolutely. And just on that one, I had the conversation with the CEO of Q-Rail the other day, and we've made it very clear, they're clear and we're clear that that's a temporary fix that's there at the moment. And that's a great example of the Build Back Better that Ross referred to earlier, where it's great to restore it, but we need a better plan going forward.
And just to add to that, I think just to reassure you that we're not dreaming this stuff up in isolation in a little room by ourselves. We work with the councils and the other partners. We have a recovery managers group. We will be drawing our longer term work from your own LTP and the other LTPs and the other planning documents that occurs. You know, they got working closely with Richard and Anne on, you know, in that recovery managers forum to ensure we're going to get that alignment.
Question from Councillor McGrath.
Just through the chair, following on from Councillor Simpson, I guess, you talked about the lifelines and power. Very early on, we were told that perhaps the answer wasn't to lift the substation up, but to have two sources of power coming in. Is part of your role to start pinning some of these organisations to times? Because we're very good at talking about stuff, and you know, to do that there's a cost, and if you've got shareholders, you obviously don't rip out fast and spend money. Are you guys in a position to sort of start holding people to account and to dates, and to be able to come back to us and the likes of Hastings and Wairau and say, these were the problems, these are the dates we're starting to put in to have things resolved?
Yeah.
You go
I was just
first,
going to
and
say,
then
one of our intended roles is to have a monitoring and intervention, part of our job. I guess, to be blunt, we haven't hit the monitoring part yet, because all hands have been to deck trying to get us sort of into restoration mode and starting to get a plan. But as the agency starts to mature, the monitoring and the intervention piece will definitely be part of the role. So to take that example, we've already had discussions with Unison, interfacing with Transpower, and then through the CRU, interfacing with the government to make sure these issues are sort of tabled. And the challenge that all the government agencies have got are the same as the ones that our region has, where it's funding pathways, it's timetables, and how do you make sensible, financial decisions for assets that can get through the system to deliver a better longer term result. And some of those things are still very live and being discussed, and the substations and electricity feed into the region is definitely on the radar, needing some very robust discussions to ensure we don't get short-term funded solutions that see us, with sticking plasters all over the region, instead of, robust skeletal structures.
So to add to that, we have an infrastructure working sort of group with the key agencies on it. Transpower and Unison are both part of that. We're working with Unison, and we've also had Transpower present to that group as the sort of options they're looking at. So we'll be going back to them to see, on a regular basis what progress is being made and where they're getting to with what the preferred way forward is, and certainly representing the region's views on the various options. So that work is ongoing.
I guess to be clear, our role is mostly to shine a spotlight. We don't have the decision-making rights for what people do with their budget. Government agencies, where we can see things that need a better conversation, our role is to shine a light on that and then force a conversation if needed. Hopefully, to date, most of it's been highly constructive and facilitative, and then really work to get the parties that need to be in a room together to resolve some of those. And there's been a really strong will from within the infrastructure entities to do that to date, which is great.
Thank you.
So I think, again, this is just, reflecting that when the RRA was set up and the recovery was set up with the regional lens, that overriding sort of mission of building back better, safer and smarter was put in with some principles around that. They provide a framework for the direction of the work we're going to be doing in the next phases. And some of those key questions about how do we ensure what is rebuilt and restored is resilient? How do we ensure that the recovery investment that will come in is directed to capture opportunities and improvements? So like, improved outcomes from infrastructure or from system investment. And how do we, I guess the third one is how do we best channel that investment expenditure so that it maximises benefits to our businesses and communities, whānau and citizens, and things like workforce development and progressive procurement are things that come into play in that space, so we get the maximum flow through our regional economy. So that's sort of providing a macro sphere for the next part. I guess this is just well, I find it an interesting diagram, but we've been at the sort of in that restoration phase of getting people back up on their feet has been that initial focus of response and recovery. We're moving into the more towards that transformative end. The focus of Plan 1 was more about restoration. The focus of Plan 2 as we move forward is going to be about addressing the causes of what's causing vulnerabilities, addressing opportunities that come with building resilience and channeling that infrastructure spend. So just if you look at that across a number of things that are important, we've got things in the restoration like silt and debris. Housing's one of the key issues in terms of well-being and humanitarian outcomes. Housing was a problem in particularly the urban areas of Hawke's Bay before the cyclone. We were probably 3,000 houses at least short. The cyclone didn't help with it. So we've got people, that were doing it hard before the cyclone. That's been made worse. At the moment, there's a focus on temporary accommodation and restoring homes and things like that. But moving forward, how do we address inequalities in the housing outcomes? And I think, working with agencies like Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, they have as part of their business as usual, working to address that with a number of partners within the region. Again, across each of those dimensions, the ones we've looked at here, infrastructure, restoring connections and access, that's going to take a while in some of those areas with some of that program. There's been some temporary solutions put in, one of the longer term ones, but then looking forward to, as you're saying, what does resilient electricity infrastructure look like? What does resilient telecoms infrastructure look like? Readers commissioned a piece of work for us in the telecommunications space looking at vulnerabilities, so that work's going on at the moment. State Highway 2 and 5 obviously key links into the region, and there's others that will emerge. again, in healthcare, psychosocial and other supports being the restoration emphasis, but moving forward, looking at the hospital, looking at what fit for purpose health services, how do we provide hauora wellbeing, not just the bricks and mortar, but what does that look like in terms of system resilience into the future. And water security, another one, restoring services at the moment, but what does water security look like into the future? So just in terms of some of the things that are emerging, as we start to look at the BIM and some of the brainstorming that's gone on, and please think about this and reflect on it and feedback through Louise and Kirsten as well. That some of those things are captured in there. Some of the things that are likely to be priorities, and so they're not all about money. There's both short and long-term housing, but things like orders in council. The regional council's got a major program of flood protection works to build. I wouldn't like to contemplate doing that under a normal RMA process. Streamlining a process so that can be done quickly and efficiently is something that would really help recovery efforts in the region. Obviously, infrastructure is going to be vital in the things that we pad out around that program, both for resilience and for growth opportunities. And then those sort of other resilience and regional initiatives, workforce development, and how that's led. These have been developed from brainstorming from various places, including the mayors. But have a think about this and think about whether there's other ideas that come up. I just paint the context that the Plan 2 is going to be top down rather than bottom up, because we're basically there's not going to be the room for a laundry list of aspirations. We've got to narrow down, boil down pretty quickly to some of the key 4 or 5 game-changing things that we can ask for that are going to make a key difference in recovery. And that's just a slide of how we're thinking about it within our organisations, those principal outcomes we're trying to achieve, and then some of the work we're doing in terms of planning, prioritisation, looking at what those priorities are, working with and for our partners in terms of particular projects, and then the projects and tactical delivery approaches through government relations and other things, the BIM that we're doing to sort of drive those forward. And just over the next sort of 9 months to a year, very much still in the next quarter, that transition. We're still managing things around fossil, still working with our PSG partners where they've got impacts in whenua Māori in their areas, but we're moving into the BIM, moving into recovery planning process and building those monitoring that you talked about, Councillor McGrath, the monitoring and the interventions we need to make to hold people to account, and working through to get things into the next budget cycle, not just the next budget year, but the 1 to 4 year cycle, and thinking beyond that. Some of the things we'll be asking for won't be, we need money for this. Some of them will be, actually, we need a planning process or a conversation to work out what's the best way for state highway resilience, or what's the best thing, and out of that will come the investment programs. So I think that's the end of the formal presentation. Very happy to have a conversation, hear ideas, or answer questions. But just that gives you a snapshot of what we've been doing and where we're heading into the future. And very much just end by saying that Napier has been a key partner in the work that's been done so far, a key contributor to the recovery efforts, both at staff level and at elected member level. We have a very strong working relationship with Richard and Anne and the broader team, but in that recovery sphere. So really want to thank you all for that effort and support of the agency, but the effort that's been put forward, and Kirsten and Louise also for your efforts at driving the region forward and keeping it together. So thank you.
Thank you, Ross and Blair. Very comprehensive update there. I'll open up if there's any further questions from councillors. Just one question by myself, and obviously you've covered off in quite a bit of detail, both the BIM and sort of moving into phase 2 of the resilience planning and funding requests, requirements going forward. When we were working on the phase 1 locality plans, and of course, we had to work at pace at the time, we had some very tight timelines, and there was a commitment made to our communities at that point in time that they would have the opportunity to participate in phase 2. Conscious, of course, of what you have just said, Ross, and the fact that we need to be really focused in our approach to phase 2 and identify what those key priorities are, and really give it our absolute, for want of better language, best shot in terms of having an aspirational but also realistic plan that we're going to put forward. Do you see that there will be an opportunity, and I guess this will also be a question for our individual councils, for community to have input during this phase?
I think we're sort of working with the councils and other agencies on how they wish to shape their next set of input to recovery planning. So I know that a couple of the councils are planning to work up a second generation locality plan with their communities and do some engagement around that. Some of the other councils at this stage are talking more of using their LTP and their processes around that to feed into and take community aspirations from that to feed into the plan. So it's very much a horses for courses. At a regional level, we won't be running a regional engagement exercise. We don't want to get in the way of the councils and other organisations connecting with their communities, and we probably don't have the sort of bandwidth to do that in a meaningful way. But certainly we are in the hands of the councils as to how councils want to shape their input and shape their own community input into that.
Yes, very much take a steer from you. We're not community facing, you are, and as are the other councils and PSGEs. So I'm very open to your thoughts and feedback on that.
Thank you. And I guess speaking on behalf of, well, myself, I not speak on behalf of anybody else at this point. I would certainly see the LTP as being the best vehicle for us, considering one of our strategic priorities is around building resilience. So bearing that in mind, what sort of have you got a time frame in mind at this stage so that we can ensure that the pre-engagement and as we move through our LTP process that we can get the information at the right time to feed into what you're doing?
There's two big gates. There's the BIM, which is any day now.
Yeah.
So we have to get that into whomever is in government pretty soon, and obviously that's a moment in time, and that could be moderated. And then there's the budget process for next year. So those are the two sort of big timing gates, and we really need to, I guess as a region, be quite clear on what our ask is heading into budget 24 for the government in the first quarter of next year at the latest. So those are, we're probably going to have to put something in that's a starter for 10 that hasn't been highly socialised, and then we'll have some time leading into the budget process to moderate that if it needs some adjustments. And the BIM is very much about sending signals rather than a direct ask. The more direct asks will come through the budgeting process. And then, as Ross said, we will ideally want that to be a multi-year position rather than just a once-off 24, but obviously 24 would be nice to get some allocations.
Great, thank you. And that would align quite nicely actually with our LTP process. So, any further questions from councillors? No? Do I have a mover and seconder to receive the thank you, Deputy Mayor Brosnan and Councillor Crown. Did you wish to speak to that?
No, just thank you very much for the update. The paper was really good as well. It gave us a really good understanding of where we're at, and I think we do have that opportunity moving forward, especially next week when we know what, what if anything changes at central government, how we can continue to put that sort of pressure in the right place and make those conversations really heard and advocate for our Hawke's Bay community. So thank you very much for the role you're doing to coordinate that. I think it is appreciated.
Thank you, and it's our pleasure to be part of it. So we welcome all feedback and thought, and really thanks again for all the work that your organisation's been doing as part of this. So thank you.
Councillor Crown, did you wish to know? Okay, I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. So thank you very much, Ross and Blair, and you, just to reiterate what the Deputy Mayor has said, we really do appreciate all the work that you're doing to coordinate, obviously, our regional message and our regional request. It's absolutely vital. Also pass on my thanks to Julia. She's a vital part of your team, of course. And I would also just like to acknowledge our team, Richard, Anne and Catherine, because they have been absolutely pivotal in terms of, preparing and doing what we need to do at our council level. So it's been, I know, a huge task, and we really appreciate all the work that's been undertaken. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our second agenda item, which is lease of land, and we have Gary Rustinsky here to talk to the paper. But before I ask Gary to speak, I will just ask Louise to also intro the paper. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. So obviously Gary will no doubt be able to answer the detailed questions, but I thought it might be good to give you a bit of background. So we were approached by Tanya and MTT to help. This is post-cyclone and the difficulties that they were facing for their whānau. We had a site which is part of the paper available, council owned, and we had no plans for any particular development of it in this first tranche. So the team were really supportive in putting things forward. We were one of a number of agencies that they were working with to find appropriate sites. Unfortunately, there weren't a lot of options for them, and this site was deemed most appropriate. The benefit for us is that, one, this land will be brought into sort of use. The investment that's needed to allow the development to happen on this site will all be funded externally. There'll be no cost to council. And ultimately, when this temporary accommodation is resolved after approximately 3 years, as you see in the paper, we will have a site which has infrastructure and the soils have been tested, and the noise reduction, panelling that's required will all have been paid for by various other government agencies. So Gary, I'll let you talk to the details. So, kia ora.
Thank you. You've just stolen most of my thunder there.
Apologies.
This is quite a specialised area, so I'll do my best to present the paper and answer any questions, but I may need to defer some of those questions until Brian is available. So as Louise mentioned, the purpose of this report is to seek approval for new ground lease to Mongahuru Tangatu Trust for the land at 21 Domain Road. So the Trust has requested help from council in finding land to lease to place temporary cabins for whānau impacted by the cyclone and whose homes are within Category 3 areas. So as Louise highlighted, residential sites being identified opposite the airport. Now, subject to approval, a building consent would be required because of utility services needed on the site, so typically things like water and electricity. So, in addition to demolition of an old shed, fencing and landscaping would also be required on the site. It's quite close to the highway, so there's some safety concerns there, just to make sure it is safe for any children. So, no market ground rent is proposed. However, for the duration of the lease, rent would be charged equivalent to council residential rates applicable to the land as a cost recovery exercise only. So the lease would be for a period of approximately 3 years. The request is in line with the order of council titled Severe Weather Emergency Temporary Accommodation Order 2023. Note that the order will be revoked on the close of the 9th of August 2026. So I'll take the remainder of the report as read.
Thank you, Gary. Questions? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Gary. I had a couple of questions through you, Your Worship. The first is there a condition in the lease that would require it to be returned to a certain state? I think it's mentioned in the report vacant, but just wondering if there are to be dwellings obviously brought in, is there a condition in the lease that they're removed at the end of that lease term?
Through you, Madam Mayor. That's correct. So any accommodation would be temporary and it would be removed from site at the end. Any infrastructure put in, such as utilities, water, that sort of thing, under the order, we can actually keep that. So essentially, it is returning it to its prior state. So if the prior state has those utilities in it, when the lease is commenced, then they can remain afterwards. But the cabins or the accommodation there would be removed.
Thank you. A couple others through you, Your Worship. I note there's not a description of the quantity of number of housing in the report. Is there a requirement in the lease for once, say, a final plan is developed for how many in the placement, et cetera, on site, that understanding obviously separately will have a regulatory view on that and that will go through its process, but as the lessor, is there an approval? You know, the plan must be run past the property development team, Brian, first, or would we not expect that?
So through the, I can probably help. So the property development team, obviously our planning and resource consents team, and Brian, I have been working closely with them, and yes, it would be done in conjunction with them.
Okay, so there is a condition in the lease that would require them?
I can't tell you if there's a condition in the lease, but that would be the approach we would take.
Okay, thank you. That would be good to get that wrapped up if possible in the lease. And through you, Your Worship, the only other question is, I know when we have vacant land, council-owned residential land next to neighbours, in the past there's been a question around consultation or discussion with the neighbours. Are you able to run us through if there has been any?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm not aware of consultation with this process, but from what I understand, consultation is not required because it is an emergency order.
Yeah, but I will invite Julia just to provide an update on what is planned around community engagement.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, subject to approval, we will be issuing a media release later today, together with a joint letter with the MTT to nearby residents. We'll also issue a letter to the West Shore Residents Association and share key messages with the elected members.
Thank you.
Councillor Greg.
This is more an observation. It is surrounded by very busy roads. Okay, so I'm just concerned that any children living here, how do they get to school? How do they cycle? How do they cross the road? Is there going to be any road crossing for them to get over there? Because as far as I can see, that's an extremely unsafe place for children.
So perhaps again, best placed to answer unless you want to jump in.
Absolutely.
So, well, I was just, so I think it's ultimately, we're simply providing the land, and the trust are well aware of the limitations. Unfortunately, they don't have a lot of other alternatives. At this stage, I'm not sure that we plan to do any further work other than provide the land and the leases set out in the documentation. But they are aware, obviously, very much. They visited the site and aware of the limitations of the site.
So, if I may, sorry, through you, Madam Mayor. With regards to the facing of the site, it would effectively be facing to Main Road, which is the old highway, as opposed to the expressway. So, with regards to some of that safety, there would be fencing on the expressway side. With regard, so to manage a little bit of the sort of noise and the security issues or safety issues for children with regards to the highway. But yes, so any logistics with regards to children going to school, that sort of thing, it would be managed from the Domain Road side. And as the Chief Executive pointed out, that's we're really just providing the land. So in terms of logistics, that would be up to the families that live there, I suppose.
Okay, just one observation that through Madam Chair, that if we're providing warm, dry, safe accommodation, I think the safety is the issue that I have.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So we're providing the land.
The land, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough.
Any further questions? I just will loop back to the Deputy Mayor and her comment about including a condition in the lease, which my interpretation is that you're wanting some sort of condition in there around an approval of the almost the urban design plan. Is my understanding correct of what you were asking for?
Yeah, that's right. I think similar to other leases like this in the past, there's been, separate to our regulatory role as the owner of the land, there's been a touch point with us before anything is applied for resource consent, for instance. Brian and his team have an oversight of what's being applied for before it hits an application process. I think that would be, if we could.
So I guess I just seeking clarification from council officers if the lease would be an appropriate place for that to be, or if that's something that we just note as a separate action outside of the lease agreement.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, there will be no resource consenting process for this, so I would encourage us as landowners to have some control over the design outcomes of the land, so in the lease would be appropriate.
So if we could note that as an action, thank you. Okay, if there's no further, Councillor Crown.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor, and I'm not sure, it doesn't pertain specifically to this, but in a wider context, what is the chance of another entity approaching us with such a question, utilising this arrangement and the law that has been put in place because of the emergency event?
Probably difficult to answer other than no one else has approached us to this point.
And I guess further to that, if we don't have land available, we don't have land available. I don't think there's a compulsion. I think it's, that if we're able to assist in some way, but there's no mandatory requirement for us to provide land. Would that be correct?
Yeah.
I can add to that when we were canvassing any appropriate sites, it was actually very difficult to come up with options because a lot of our land is reserve land, so it's not appropriate for it to be used for that purpose. It was just that this piece, and practically only this piece, was zoned main residential and wasn't reserve land.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Okay, so if there's no further discussion, the recommendations before us is to approve the ground lease, approve the use of the land for temporary accommodation. Note the approval of the lease is contingent on all required regulatory consents, and also approve delegated authority to the Chief Executive to finalise the details of the lease and sign it off. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Brown, and seconder, Deputy Mayor Brosnan. Councillor Brown.
It's wonderful to be able to offer this land to people who have been devastated by the cyclone and for us to be able to assist. And I think as the discussion is brought up, we have a responsibility to be good neighbours and to make sure that we communicate with the neighbours and let them know what's going on, with the understanding that it's our land and essentially we have the right to do with it what we want. So, thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Brosnan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through that, I was really pleased to see there would be a little bit of design oversight. I think that's always good and provides a level of comfort to those who both will be living there, developing it, and those nearby. Turning our mind to effects on neighbours, which is something that I know always happens. I was really pleased to hear that there will be an active communication strategy. Thank you, Julia, for that. Also turning our mind to, of course, it is residential land. There's a reasonable expectation of anyone nearby that would be used for residential purposes, and that our regulatory environment holds everyone to that same standard in terms of the development that will be on a residential site. So turning our minds to that, I concur with the comments that it is great to be able to offer this opportunity to those who have been really badly affected, and it is our responsibility to do everything we can to help those in that situation post-cyclone. So thank you for the work that was done to identify the site.
Thank you. Any further speakers? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Note Councillor Craig is against. Carried. Excellent. So thank you very much for that, Gary,
Thank you,
for stepping in for Brian. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Our next agenda item is the Te Aka concept design approval, and I'd invite Darren and Alex and Hilary to present the paper to us, please. Welcome.
so I've got a lot of bump here to cut around. Morena, councillors. Before I go into my summary of the paper, I just want to give a couple of clarifications due to a couple of media stories in the last couple of days around this project, just to give a quick understanding. Our friends in the media have done a slight conflation of the two phases of the project. All they've essentially done is add the preferred option of the business case for the civic administration building and added that to the total of the phase 1 TIACA. So what I have in front of you is for 58.2 million, not for 78 million and change. Also, the dates as well, they've added those together. We're still looking to be on track for TIACA to be completed in 2026, so within 3 years, not 4 years, as was reported. It is still the aim for the civic administration building, depending on the due diligence of that preferred option, to be completed by the end of 26. But I was a little bit more pessimistic about that, and I think that's more likely to roll into early 27, but we'll do our best to align both those projects, and I hope to cover that off as I summarise the paper to you this morning. So in simple terms, this paper is trying to summarise around 4 or 5 months' work, which is roughly what's in my book in front of me, which is the concept design for TIACA, which, so it goes over the why we're doing it, the who is involved, and what a concept design is within the wider context of a traditional design methodology for building a public space and buildings. What I am seeking from you as councillors is the approval and endorsement of that concept design so we can move into preliminary design, hopefully with immediate effect, so we can continue at the pace that we're doing to hit those timelines. What a concept design looks like is essentially what's attached to this paper. So there's essentially 4 documents that make up the concept design. One is your architectural view. So that's where they take the context of the whenua of the place and start to design to respond to that and the original design briefs and business case. There's the public realm landscaping approach to the process as well, because there is a lot of public realm to design to. There is also the environmental study from our service engineers, Becca, on how will we service it, but also how we will maintain our aspirations for Green Star 5 1.1 and to be net operation carbon zero for once we're built. So that's what that particular report goes into in detail. And last, and probably the one with the less amount of pictures in it, is the structural drawings from Dunning Thornton, our structural engineers, to make sure that this mass timber construction actually can be built and will hit the 100% NBS standard. Supporting those 4 bits of paper are 2 others. One is the construction strategy, which lays out what we believe is the best continuing methodology to deliver this project on time and on budget, which we believe is the traditional method. Why we've picked that? It gives most control to you and to us. If we go and look at something else, we will lose some of that ability. And also, particularly as we're doing co-design, it's really important that we have that ability to continue to work with our Mana Whenua partners around the mahi toi elements to this particular building, and that includes also the planting in the public realm. At this point, I would like to acknowledge a few people who've been involved in this work. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the hospitality, the welcome, and the knowledge that has been shared with us from our Mana Whenua partners as we have gone through many of our wānanga through the different marae, be that Whairangi marae, Waiohiki marae, Pukimoki marae. Those were excellent opportunities to hear stories firsthand and to be shared, to be inputted into this concept design. I also would like to thank the 4 elected members who have been a part of our advisory group. That will be our Mayor, our Deputy Mayor, Councillor Crystal and Councillor Taiha. Thank you very much for your commitment and time over the last 4 or 5 months as we've gone at speed on this project. And thank you to all of you elected members who've come to workshops today and inputted on this. I know it's a very special project to you, particularly as this is going to be for the whole of our community, as well as providing your own home, providing your own chambers as well, which is important. So I'm going to take a bit of water, a lot to talk about. And then on to the detail of what I've put out as our preferred option. Now, I believe we've clearly mapped out where you are as elected members going to be involved and where your decision gateways are. So if we do get through today, I believe the next thing is a workshop and an advisory group wānanga in November. The wānanga will look at what preliminary design is, so that's essentially adding more detail and focus to the design. So I always like to describe it as when you've got a camera in your hand and you're going a little bit more in focus, you gain more detail, which then leads to a document which is double the size. So basically a lot more structural drawings, and we start to look at shelf layouts, furniture layouts, how many books can actually be in this facility, how people will move through and in and out of that. So that's what we would discuss with the advisory group wānanga. That would be followed very closely with a councillor workshop, which will be looking at how the civic administration building due diligence comes in to scope with this project, how we align those two up together so I can report back on that due diligence work with costings, and also to give you an opportunity to see how the overall project, and probably for interest around the chambers as well. We aim to get the bulk of our preliminary design done by the end of this calendar year to be able to bring back a paper to you and the first council meeting at the beginning of February next year, so then we can hopefully then move on to developed design, and then at which point we get into resource consent for the building to be built. Other things to tell you about preliminary design, and it's a hot topic at the moment, that's where we look at safety in design. So really important that we keep our staff safe and our community safe when using these facilities. We'll take a very much a holistic approach to what safety in design is, and looking at particularly being by the court, but also looking at the public realm, what other tenants are nearby, who would we be encouraging to go into the ground floor of the civic administration building to make sure we get a holistic view of what safety and design looks like. We also start to really flesh out what the operating model is. So we have Sue Sutherland as our consultant, who's been involved in many, many libraries across New Zealand, including Turanga in Christchurch, around developing our operating model. And that'll be working along Nicola and the libraries team to make sure that that works, Pip within our customer service team to make sure that we're developing how this building will breathe once it is built. So that's kind of my overall summary. I'd be keen to take any questions. I also have available to go through the 3D model, if that's useful first. It might be useful for our community to see that before I take questions. Up to you, Your Worship, how you like me to proceed on that.
Yeah, I think it'd be great to see the model first, thank you.
Right. It will be a little bit laggy because I don't have the fancy software that our architects get to show this on usually, but I will do my best. Anyone watching who has any issues with fast-moving things, beware we crash into buildings. We pause as we resolve in here, so that's us coming out of Civic Court essentially from the Station Street side, and then we'll swing round to Hastings Street. And you can see the building in front. It's key to understand that a lot of this is not fully resolved yet. There's opportunities to see refinement, particularly what we're calling the prow at the front there. There's a real opportunity for a pole, potentially, or another form of mahi toi to be represented there. And you get to see a real feel of the drop of that land from Hastings Street down towards Dalton Street. It's a 1.5 metre drop, hence the terracing that's starting to be articulated there. As we swing around again. You kind of, as you were coming on the bustling Hastings Street. Let me come a bit in closer now. We will be producing a video that will have better voiceover than me. That's coming soon. Good view of the chambers, I think, there. And now we're going to smash into the building. And for anybody watching on here, this is not the shelving and furniture plan. This is basically an indication of scale. There will be a far more detailed shelving plan, and we will be using wall space as well, which we haven't articulated yet. But you get to see the impact of what we call the wakahuia space, that lifted vessel. It'll be a beautiful looking carved object. Swinging back round and in, showing the double height space of the front foyer, and then back looking towards Hastings Street, and you just start to get a view of Marine Parade there. Crashing through at speed, and you're starting to get a glimpse of the speed, of the of the waterfront there, and then we'll come around towards where the court is. And that's very much a change around how that approach and how do we manage that space and activity between those two very busy buildings. And then we wing down what we're calling the Southern Laneway between us and the court and the activation there. Also, to be very clear, that is not the design for a new civic administration building. That's very much a placeholder. But it gives you an indication. We know that that roof profile needs to change. That's probably an easier thing to visualise than what's currently there. And we whiz round again. So come up Dalton, up Station, swing all the way back into the public realm. And then we swing round to the chambers, which also could be used by the public as a bookable space. And then we go quickly flying for one last interior shot of that. Have I gone one too far? I have gone one too far. Here we go. Swing round. There you go. So that's the chambers itself in chambers mode. And we have looked at the increasing capacity. So that's the more unpacked version of the chambers. We can put another 24 seats in than is what's represented there. So that's very much a whirlwind view of the buildings. Questions?
Thank you very much, Darren. And just touching on the point you've made there with the council chambers and reiterating that we have been very, very focused on designing that as a space that's available for community use as well. So I think that's a fantastic thing for our community to know, rather than it sitting there empty the bulk of the time and just waiting for our formal council and committee meetings. I'm really excited that we're actually creating an additional resource for our community groups and organisations and, you know, to use as well. So it's fantastic that we've incorporated that into these initial concept designs. So thank you. I will open to questions from councillors, please. Councillor McGrath.
Through the chair. The costings so far that you clarified earlier, 58.2 million?
Yep.
Does that include GST?
We're working in a GST-free environment. Yes, it does. That's the price that we will pay.
That does include GST?
I need to clarify that. That's the price that QS is living. So I would have to clarify that includes GST for you. But the budget, the business case was worked out in the same domain, sorry, through the chair, so that is 58.
Yeah. And does that include the contingency as well?
Absolutely. So if you look at the QS report on, in the attachment, I think it's 2, that the current construction of those two buildings is around the 38 million mark. And then there's the escalation predictions. And then there's also a contingency within that as well that brings us up to that 58 million. So there is a bit of room in that particular budget.
Thank you.
No problem.
Deputy Mayor Brosnan.
Just want to clarify, Darren, a couple of my understandings. Do you recall when we first budgeted that 55? Which LTP was that? Was that
So that was the
21?
previous LTP, the one we're currently in.
Yeah, so 2021?
Yeah.
Okay. Through you, Your Worship, next question. The next stage of consultation, what will the community see?
For you, Your Worship, the next forum will be, we'll hopefully have some media that will go out and celebrate what we're doing. That'll be one of the first steps. It will be part of our consultation for the LTP about where we've got to. So anyone can submit on the LTP to where we've got to on that. The public realm, the wider public realm that isn't budgeted within this particular project will also, if the council wants to do that, require some public consultation around that. So it'll be an informed piece within the LTP primarily.
Yeah, thank you. And through you, Your Worship, just the last question. When, in terms of the project staging, are we planning construction to start?
I'll just double check. I think it's the beginning of 26.
So roughly 18 months.
18 months construction, 18 to 19 months construction. So from January, February of 25 through to October-ish 2026.
Great, thank you very much.
you. And just going back to Councillor McGrath's question, I can confirm that those costings are exclusive of GST. It's in the cost estimate report included in our papers, and that's standard practice, typically with all reporting and things like this, for it to be included in an exclusive basis, because we claim back the GST portion.
So just through the chair, we claim back the GST portion. Can you just explain that?
With my accounting hat on. GST, essentially, the way GST works is as a GST registered entity, if there is a GST element on costs that we incur when we file our GST returns, we actually have that GST component returned to us. It is offset any GST that we collect on the revenue, but it's not a cost to us. It actually gets returned to us by the Inland Revenue. Councillor Crystal.
I know we've discussed this a little bit, but potentially moving forward, we've talked about sort of philanthropy and community donations and stuff to be able to complete the project. And so have you had any more thoughts on that and how that might work?
Through the chair, absolutely we have. I think Steph Kennard's with us today watching on. She's going to take the lead on that with me to work through a process. We're going to work with Christchurch in particular around what they've done around Turanga and their foundation. So I think there's probably 2 or 3 components to this. There is that support around philanthropic, around the opportunity to kind of get those people to go deep into their pockets to support such an important project like this. There's also the general broader outcomes. So what can we do with our vendors, our suppliers, while we're doing this multi-million-dollar project, that we can get them to stand by their broader outcomes that they all put in their proposals. So how can we support apprenticeships? How can we support local business? How can we encourage, just so the community can get better impact? So at council, we're doing that graduate programme. So all of those graduates will be working on TIACA, which is the plan. So they will become advocates and they will also be part of that broader outcomes. So all of our professional services are supporting their graduate programme. They will give them a kind of run through of how this project works, because it's not often that graduates get that opportunity to work on something of this scale and complexity. And then the third one is just a kind of the smaller donations, the little bits and pieces. It's more little bits and pieces, but that opportunity to the community members to get behind particular programming, events. When Taradale Library was built, the Friends of the Library there donated funding for a lot of the furniture for the children's area, some of the collection that they also donated funds to. So there's different scales here, I think, and that's what we're working on at the moment.
Right, thank you.
Any further questions? Deputy Mayor Bosman.
Was just happy
Happy
to
to
move the recommendations.
I'm happy to second from the chair. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Darren, Alex, Hilary, Councillor Crystal, Councillor Tariha, and your worship for all of your many, many hours, I know, that have gone into getting to this milestone here today. I do have a few words, if that's all right. So library is a hub. It's a place for everyone. And our community has been without their library, their place, since 2017. They've also been without a chambers, which is a space that acts as a kind of inner city town hall. It provides transparency into our local democracy, what we do here. And it's a space that we celebrate our civic events like our citizenship ceremonies and consultations and engagements, and where we get together. So considering our construction timeframes and when we were out of the buildings, it's a 10-year time period, it's a decade that our community has been without its space. Our staff have also been without their building. So that costs us 3 leases at the moment for our staff to be split across. And we know that being located together, we're a more cohesive organisation. So being a good employer is a responsibility we have. And for me, this project, and stage 2 in particular of this project, talks to that. So TIACA is funded. And I'm going to say it's within cooey of budget at 58 million, which includes all of that contingency and all of that escalation cost. So 55 million was the number that we consulted on in our LTP. And I know that sounds like a large number, and it's hard, you know, for an individual, you can't equate, it's impossible to equate that to a household budget. However, in comparison to Tauranga's $100 million library, Christchurch's 93 and Wellington's 200 budget over the last 5 years, we know these things aren't getting cheaper, and it gives me confidence that this is not a Rolls-Royce budget. We have engaged our quantity surveyors from day one of this project to value engineer from the beginning, not the end, to keep the costs as reasonable as possible. And so that gives me a whole lot of confidence. And I actually can't underestimate how stoked I am at the number we've got to with this project. Te Aka involved community partnership and engagement right from the beginning. So first through setting our budgets and the LTPs, and it's gone through 2, possibly even 3 LTPs, and who knows how many annual plans in the middle as well. So it's been engaged, our budget, throughout those processes. We engaged on a vision before the old building was demolished, and that was key. We also developed the library and the civic area plan, and we consulted throughout that, and then we consulted before developing this concept design that you have today. We work closely with Mana Whenua community, friends of the library, all our neighbouring site occupiers and owners as well as some of our community groups like Citizens Advice Bureau, to ensure that the outcome reflects the space that everyone wants to be. And that aligns with our vision that we're talking about. A building that delivers on our Green Star ambition as well is icing on the cake for me. So our library will be more than just books. It will be a one-stop shop for our council customer services. It will be full of bookable meeting rooms and spaces for community groups, maker spaces, sewing groups, knitting groups, woodworking groups, and more. It will revitalise our inner city, and it will be a cool place for our youth. It will be a fun place for our young. It will be a quiet place for our readers, and it will be a place of learning, or for just being, for everyone. So I can't be more excited about returning this library and these community spaces to our Napier people. My challenge to our media, bouncing off the clarifications that were needed at the start of this, is get behind this space for our community that is desperately in need of having its space back. Let's celebrate this investment in our people. And I'm looking forward to that next stage of consultation where we polish that design and we get down to the detail, which we know everyone loves, and we work towards starting in the next 18 months. So kia kaha, kia mana, and kia manawa nui. Be strong, be brave, be steadfast. Ka pai.
Well, thank you, Deputy Mayor. There's absolutely nothing further to add. To that very impassioned and but very true speaking to the motion. The only further thing I would like to add is a sincere thank you from myself and on behalf of Council for the leadership that you have shown so far in terms of progressing this project. You have been pivotal, so thank you so very much for everything that you have done. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the motion? Okay, so that being the case, the motion is to endorse the concept design for Te Aka, approved to proceed into the next stages of the architectural design process, and to endorse the construction strategy for Te Aka. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Excellent. And I think that actually deserves a round of applause. And thank you so much, Darren, Alex, Hilary, and I know the huge number of not only our council team, but the external people as well that have been involved. It's been an incredibly inclusive and incredibly exciting process to date, and we're all really, really looking forward to moving forward. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. You made me write this speech.
Yes.
I don't apologise for that at all.
Yes, that's what I was sitting doing at the start. You made
Right, and our next agenda item is the Arts Advisory Panel recommendation, and Furnace will be presenting this paper to us. Welcome, Thunis.
Morning, councillors and Madam Chair. It's always interesting is after an item like that. But I believe mine will be as riveting as that.
Absolutely.
So just as an introduction, Madam Chair, the stormwater mural review gave us the opportunity to have our first meeting of the advisory panel during this triennium. And what we did was to use this opportunity to review the terms of reference, as you will see in the document, as well as we also appointed Freeman White as the arts representative for Napier. There was 5 people that we looked at, and the panel chose Freeman White. I also called him, and he's very happy with the appointment. So he accepted that, and it's great to have him on board. And the rest is as recommended.
Excellent. Thank you, Thunis. Any questions? Councillor Gregg.
Through you, Your Worship, just an observation. I just want to compliment the artist. The artist's name is Mauricio Benega, and he's made an absolutely amazing job of creating a visually appealing stormwater mural. And also he's put the use of te reo, lots of words and phrases in there, so encouraging us all to learn, which I think is amazing.
Thank you. Councillor McGrath.
You just, through the chair, one question, 100% behind it, but I'm just wondering if we've missed out a partner here, being some of those little bridge edges could be on Wakakotahi roads, and I'm not sure I saw them as part of the being in there. So just with the bridges on Taradale Road, perhaps might be part of the state highway network, is just to ensure that we've got a tick off from them as well.
We will follow that up, but we will follow it up.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's a biggie, but yeah, we've got to play nicely.
Note as an action to confirm whether we've got that one. Thank you, Anna. There's no further questions or discussion. I'll ask for a mover and seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Crystal and Councillor Gregg. Would you like to speak to that?
Oh, just that it's great to get the Arts Advisory Committee back up and running again, and thank you, Thunis, for all your work in doing this. I think it's actually really important that we have some eyes over some things before they actually go public, which has kind of been missed a bit. So that's been great. And then this mural is certainly, it's not something that when you drive past you're going to look at. You need to walk past and read it all properly. So it's sort of done as an educational mural as well. So, and it's also funded through the West Shore Flood Protection Fund. So yeah, it's a win-win for us. So thank you.
Okay. Councillor Gregg. Deputy Mayor Brosnan.
Thank you. Echo those comments that it's great to get the Arts Advisory Panel going up. And I just wanted to briefly say that I would like to speak to fully endorse the appointment of Freeman White to the Arts Advisory Panel, noting the process that you went through for that. Freeman has done a number of public artworks around Napier and is extremely talented, and I think will be a very valuable member of the committee and or the panel, and by doing that I think it gives it a lot of weight as well and a lot more expertise, which I think is really valuable and a great thing for the city. So just a quick note to endorse his appointment.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. If there's no further speakers, I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Madam Chair, if I may just add something, it's just to say that Andrew and his team has been instrumental in getting this panel going. So I do want to thank them. They've done all the hard yards. So.
Excellent. Thank you, Thunis. Thank you, Andrew, and your team. Agenda item 5 is Mayoral Relief Fund distributions update from Talia. Welcome, Talia.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
So this is the third report to Council on the distributions from the Mayoral Relief Fund from Cyclone Gabrielle. I have added, as requested this time, the date that the payments were made. That doesn't necessarily line up with when the request came through though. And there's just a couple of updates since this paper was prepared at the end of September. So the Dr. Lucy Hone's event has been, the payment was made for that now, and the recipient is actually Evergreen Foundation rather than Toddy Talks. Toddy Talks was the facilitator. There has been another $5,000 granted yesterday for a children's book. So the updated balance is now 7,326. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Talia. And just a further update, which Talia is not aware of yet, we have had another application just yesterday, which Louise and I have approved, which is from the organisers of the dinner club, who throughout the course of these dinners they've been providing have had a number of conversations with the impacted community members, talking about the fact they've lost all their cookbooks, their family recipes, and some of these things which, you know, are incredibly sentimental to people. So she has applied for assistance. She is intending to pull together a cookbook, ask community members to contribute towards that. So I'll be forwarding that on to Talia. That will also be a $5,000 grant that we'll be making. So yeah, we'll be down to 2,327. And I just want to say it's been so fantastic to see the variety and the breadth of the applications we've received, which have all had a community impact and benefit to the people that have been impacted by the cyclone and to our wider community. So it's been fantastic to utilise these funds that we've received in that way. So, and thank you, Talia, for all the work that you've done with regards to the distribution of this. So, Councillor Brown.
Yeah, through the chair, just wondering the Radio Hawke's Bay Civil Defence app, just wondering what that is and if that's something that we should share with the public a bit more around.
We do have further information on that, and they are busy as well out seeking additional funding for that. So I can certainly share that wider with the councillor group and then discuss with the organisers of that if they'd like us to assist and support them in any way with going out and communicating with the wider community.
Is it, just a follow-up, is it something that's in development?
Yes.
Oh, right, okay. Thank you.
Any further questions? Can I have a mover and seconder? Thank you, Councillor McGrath. Councillor Crystal, would you like to speak to that?
Just briefly through the chair, this transparency for our community is awesome, and thank you for being part of it.
Councillor Crystal.
Yeah, through the chair, I just think the variety of things is just quite incredible, you know, from security cameras for people to the wonderful dinner club, which we were privileged to go and meet with, you know, to basketball courts. It's just such a variety of things that we're helping our community in a small way. So, yeah, it's great.
Any other speakers? So I'll put the motion that we receive the report. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much, Talia. Rightio, now we're getting to the exciting stuff. Sorry, Andrew. Next item is amendment to the 2023 schedule of standing committees and council meetings. So welcome, Andrew.
Good morning. Glad you agree that it's all the exciting stuff. Okay, so the first item here is the amendment to the schedule. It's just the same as I think we did last meeting as well, adding another council meeting. This one is to adopt the annual report, and we're proposing that that takes place on the 31st of October at 4 p.m.
Excellent, thank you. I think it's pretty straightforward. Any questions? Councillor McGrath.
Could you clarify the dress code on the 31st of October, please?
It's a council meeting, Councillor McGrath.
Clearly good.
Councillor Brown.
Happy to
Happy to
move.
move. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Tareha, thank you. Any further? No, wonderful. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. And next up, we have the 2024 proposed meeting schedule.
So, as you would have seen from the previous item, we have a schedule of meetings. And we decided that as this year seems to be rapidly speeding towards an end, it was time to look at next year's schedule. So we have put together what you have got attached with your papers. The only things to note is that since this version of the schedule was circulated, we then got the LGNZ calendar of meetings, and we found that there were some clashes. So there are 3 changes that I would like to propose be made to the schedule as circulated. The first is the council meeting on the 7th of March. Unfortunately, that clashes with the regional and provincial LGNZ meeting. So my proposal is that we delay that by 1 week. So instead of being on the 7th of March, it would be on the 14th of March. The second clash is the RMP hearings, which are set down in March. That clashes with a Zone 3 meeting on the 21st and 22nd of March. So the proposal is that they are moved to the 22nd, 23rd, 24th of July, which is quite a big change. But we consulted with the people that are doing the work there, and they said that actually July would work better than what we had anyway. So that's the second proposed change. And the third one is on the 22nd of November, we had put in the Audit and Risk Committee meeting. Unfortunately, that clashes with the a Zone 3 meeting and a regional and provincial section meeting. So I'm proposing that that is delayed by 1 week until the 29th of November.
Very good. Any questions?
Oh, sorry, if I could just, obviously, as we've just demonstrated, during the year, we are able to amend them. So if there are any changes, anything that needs to be moved or added or anything else, we can do so.
Thank you, Andrew, but it is very good, nice and early on to have this initial indication so that we can plan around that as well, so. Councillor Crystal.
Just through the Mayor, will you send us an amended calendar with those changes?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Excellent. If there's no further discussion, I'm happy to move from the chair. If I could have a seconder. Councillor Mawson, did I just see your hand up? No further comments from myself, so I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against and carried. And now we have a proposed amendment to standing orders.
Okay, so this one's a little bit more complicated, but not overly so. So this is all about the standing order about whether members who are attending by electronic links are counted for quorum. The standing orders currently say that members attending electronically are not counted by quorum, for the quorum, but then the Act was amended as a result of the weather events to say that actually members attending by electronic links would be counted for quorum. So we've ended up with the Act saying one thing and our standing orders being slightly out of whack. That was put in as a temporary measure just until the end of, I think the date's in here somewhere, can't see it, September 2024. So that was put in as a temporary measure, but then in the most recent legislation, obviously Parliament has decided that it's actually quite a good idea and that we should keep it as a permanent thing. So when that temporary fix ends at the end of September 2024, a new amendment will kick in. It's already sitting there lurking, waiting, ready to go, but it doesn't come into force until the 1st of October 2024, and that will just continue it on indefinitely. So it seemed like a good time to now change our standing orders so that they actually line up with what the Act says. So, excuse me, I've put in track changes there at 8.3, the proposed changes to standing orders 13.8 and 13.9. While I was at it, I couldn't resist tinkering a little bit, and I've just made a couple of other changes to references to electronic to being audio link or audio visual link. That's just to line up with the wording in the Act. And the change at the top of 13.9 is just a consequential amendment, just to reflect that members who are attending by link are counted, and so we no longer need to distinguish between those who are and aren't. Any other questions?
Thank you very much, Andrew. Councillor Mawson.
Just for the benefit of those that are watching, appreciate through the chair. Appreciate that we're kind of outside the Act at the moment, but is there an ability for us to actually say no and have our own standing orders outside the Act?
There is. I printed this off. The Act does say that. It's not clipped it to itself.
Apologies.
So I've got it here, but for some reason it's printed on A3. So a member can attend electronically if the standing orders permit attendance. So it does make that point that the standing orders have to allow it as well. But it's not entirely clear how, to me, and this is perhaps something that we could get further advice on if we wanted to, how standing orders fit with the Act if there is a conflict. I'd have to check that a bit further, I think.
Thank you.
But to my mind, at the moment, we've got the Act saying, actually, people can attend and they count for quorum, but our standing orders are just going to be out of sync with that. And there seems to be no good reason for that.
Okay. Any further questions? Have a mover and seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Taraha, any further comments?
Oh, look, it's 2023 and it makes a lot of sense, so.
Thank you. Councillor Taraha.
Can I ask Councillor Mawson his reasoning for that, for his question?
Yeah, sure, no problem, Councillor Taliha, through the chair. It was simply to see whether or not actually we were able to say, no, please attend within the Act. That's all, simple. So in other words, is this actually just a formality, or is there actually the ability to do that? That was simply my question. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other speakers? Councillor Crown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just along the lines of Councillor Mawson's query, yeah, I'm interested to understand if we can have a provision within our own standing orders. And the reason, I'll be really upfront, yes, it may be 2023 and we have the technology and these different ways of working, but there is nothing like being in a room with the rest of your colleagues when you are making decisions, especially very serious decisions at times. It's kind of like wanting to have your cake and eat it too. Yes, I think we need the ability to be able to activate such suggestions when we need to, for example, when there's cyclones or COVID and those types of things. But I'm just really wary of how we manage our culture around making sure that primarily we are in a room together. So, yeah, I thank you, Councillor Mawson, for sort of bringing that to the forefront because, yeah, for me, that's a real consideration with this. It just, I don't want us to have an excuse to not show up, is probably how I'd put it. So, yeah, just food for thought.
Thank you, Councillor Crown. Councillor Gregg.
Through the chair, yes, I'd like to agree with what Councillor Crown just said. I think there's nothing like face-to-face, and I think we should always make the effort to be in person.
Thank you. If we could just have an action to follow up on seeking clarification around whether standing orders can actually be different to what the Act says around this particular issue. Thank you very much. If there's no further speakers, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay. Mawson, Crown and Gregg.
Either move and second
Greg. Carried. Thank you. One more for you.
One more. So, once again, we have minutes of various committees. So we've got the 26th June Hawke's Bay Civil Defence Emergency Management Group Joint Committee, the 30 June Joint Waste Futures Project Steering Committee, 11th July Napier Hastings Future Development Strategy Joint Committee, 4 August Hawke's Bay Regional Council Transport Committee, and the 11 August Clifton to Tangaio Coastal Hazards Strategy Joint Committee. As you will appreciate, I did not attend any of those, so I'm not able to comment on the minutes, but I will leave it to those of you who were there if there are any questions.
So yes, I would invite any of the members of any of these committees, if they would like to provide any updates, you're welcome to do so now. I think Councillor Brown, you were wishing to speak to the Joint Waste Futures Steering Committee?
Yeah. Through the Mayor, the minutes for this are our first ever meeting as the committee, at which I was nominated the chair and Ana Apatu from the Hastings District Council as the deputy chair. We had some really interesting reports come to us, and there's some really exciting work going on in this space, and one of the pieces of work that we want to do is working out how that information comes out from coming to just our committee meeting, and then we share it more broadly with our councils and the public as a whole. There's some really cool support coming from central government in this. They really want to support us in moving towards a more waste-free committee. And we talked about the Waste Minimisation Management Plan, which is the key piece of work that this committee works on. And it's looking at how, we manage all of our recycling and our rubbish collection at the curbside, but also how we as a community are going to start to minimise the amount of waste that we're creating. And we've had subsequent information that that plan at the moment is coming to its end of life, the existing one, and we need to do another one. But because of the cyclone, some of that work hasn't progressed. So we've been able to get an extension through the Swirl Amendment from central government. And that pretty much covers it off, and I'll work out how we share some of the really good news in another one. I've also got the Clifton to Tangaio Coastal Hazards Strategy. Would you like me to quickly do that? So at this meeting, as you're well aware, this is a project that's been going for 8 years now. Where we're currently at is that we're looking at vesting this piece of work within the regional council. There was a paper on the Coastal Hazards Management Interim Response, which is looking at how the councils will actually manage it until it's vested in the regional council. So the paper that we got was looking at, it's basically an operational document or a plan, which speaks to the memorandum of transition that we've signed off on. So it's sort of decided that came to the committee for viewing, but it doesn't need to be endorsed by all the partner councils because it just puts the memorandum of transition into practice. We had an update on our adaptation thresholds. So the way the strategy is going to work is that there's staged pieces of work that will happen, and there's going to be thresholds, triggers, that will be things that are happening within the community that will give us an indication of when we move to the next step. That work has been put on hold until we do the consultation with the public. So the process of vesting this work in within HBRC requires a lot of community consultation. So we're going to talk to the public then around what they think they'll be, and so that work is put on hold until then. And the key piece of work that we're looking at the moment is capturing all of the Mataranga Māori, so the local knowledge and the special Indigenous knowledge around the coast. And there was also a paper that we signalled, which has come to another meeting, which we haven't got the minutes of yet, which is talking about where this work fits within the, like, Hawke's Bay's adaptation towards climate change. So this committee, when it was set up, it was looking at a subset of our coast, and it was looking at a subset of all of the hazards. So quite a small one, and the idea was we'll get ourselves and our structures on its feet, and then we'll be able to expand the rohe, or the area, to the full length of the coast, and then also expand the number of hazards that we're looking at. In the meantime, we've had the Climate Action Joint Committee be established, and so at our meeting, we've had a paper that's looking at all of the different pieces of work that are going on within the adaptation space. And there's a number, and at the moment within Hawke's Bay, they're sort of coming from a lot of different angles. So the Climate Action Joint Committee actually has a meeting tomorrow, and this is something that we potentially will discuss, is how, as a region, we have a cohesive and organised way to approach adaptation to climate change. So yeah, that's me.
Excellent, thank you, Councillor Brown. Now, I was actually an apology for the Hawke's Bay Civil Defence Emergency Management Group Joint Committee meeting in June. Councillor Simpson, did you have any comments to make as you attended that on my behalf?
If I recall right, I think I have already verbally briefed council on that meeting.
I think you may have,
It was
yeah.
the meeting where the committee was advising the chief executives around the terms of reference for the public review. And also the arrangements having been finalised about getting Mana Whenua as representatives around the CEDM Group joint table. Those were the two primary outcomes, and I think there has been at least one, or if not two, meetings since that date.
There has, thank you, Councillor Simpson. As a member of the Napier Hastings Future Joint Development Strategy Joint Committee, I believe we have reported on that in a previous council meeting as well. And Councillor Price, who is our representative on the Transport Committee, is an apology today. So if so, are there any specific, Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, I'm aware that Councillor Price is unwell, but I did note in the minutes that Neil Gordon had made a deputation about safe cycling. And just to advise members that Councillor Gregg and myself will be meeting with our council officer Owen Mutter on Monday to establish or look at who is invited to attend and make up part of the Napier City Council Active Transport Committee. So we will be starting that on Monday.
Fantastic. Thank you for the update. Okay. If there's no further questions, I'm happy to move from the chair. If I could have a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Crown. No further comments from me. Any comments from, no? So we'll put the motion. All those in favour of receiving these unconfirmed minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. And Andrew?
Sorry, I have one thing to add, which is a response to Councillor Mawson's question about standing orders.
Yes.
Which I was busy quickly having a look, and then Anna sent me some information as well. So Clause 27 of Schedule 7 of the Local Government Act says that a local authority must adopt a set of standing orders. The standing orders of a local authority must not contravene this Act, the Local Government Official Information Meetings Act, or any other act. And that is then reflected in our standing orders, which says that Standing Order 3.1, standing orders must not contravene any act. So they're in line with each other, both saying that the act has precedence and that we need to fall into line.
Excellent, thank you very much.
I can tick off that action point now.
You can
already.
indeed. The fastest action. Thank you very much, Andrew. So we'll now move on to the reports and recommendations from our specialist committees. First up, reports from Ngā Manukanuka o Te Iwi. And there were 3 reports on their last committee meeting. So we'll move through them all, and just stop me if you have any questions on the way. So the first report was the Te Aka Cultural Narrative. Second was an uplift item, so the nomination of appointed member to be a member of our Sustainable Napier and Future Napier committees, of which Tiwana Aranui has been recommended from Ngā Manokanaka o te iwi to be their representative on those committees. And the third item was notification of the proposed district plan. So are there any questions or discussion on any of those before I ask for a mover and seconder? No, so I'm happy to move from the chair. If I could have a seconder, please. Councillor Crown, thank you very much. Any further comments? No, I'll put those. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. And then we have reports from the Audit and Risk Committee held on the 29th of September. Again, I'll move through the various agenda items here, and also just acknowledging as well that we had Councillor McGrath join us on the day for this committee meeting, and I would encourage all councillors to come and participate. Our chair and independent chair, Bruce, is very welcoming and likes to see additional elected members there to contribute to the conversation. So bear that in mind for future meetings, and thank you, Councillor McGrath, for making the effort to join us.
That was lovely.
So the first agenda item at this meeting was our health and safety report for the April to August 2023 quarter, followed by sensitive expenditure for the Mayor and Chief Executive, then an update report from Audit New Zealand. 4 was the external audit actions status update. Item 5, internal audit status update. Item 6, integrity policies. So as you can see, a highly exciting and riveting agenda, but no, all sarcasm aside, you know, these agenda items and reports are incredibly important and a part of our role as governors, a vital part of what we're responsible for. So like I will just reiterate my comment that we would love to see other elected members there if you can make it along. Any questions on the agenda item reports that are listed? Councillor
Just one question there. I noticed that the Audit New Zealand said they're on track with the audit and commencing full audit on the 2nd of October. Is it that I'm taking from our previous paper that we're expecting the audit to be completed and signed off by the 30th of October?
We are.
Wishful thinking.
We're being positive. Any further questions? Okay, can I have a mover and seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Mawson. Councillor Taylor, any comments or discussion? No? So I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. And now on to reports under delegated authority, which we have tenders let, of which there are 3 included in the report. Are there any questions on any of these? Very good. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Crystal. Councillor McGrath, would you like to speak to that?
No, it's okay.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Right. Could I please have a mover and seconder to move into public excluded? Thank you, Councillor Mawson. Councillor Tariha. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you, everybody. We'll just